We are back at it here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast with you as always. Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, NFL.com. Straight out of bed this morning. If you're catching us via the stream, you know what I'm talking about. Sam McDowell, of course, has brought his background from Kansas City to New Orleans. The Kansas City Stars best joins us here as always. My name is Soren Petro from Sports Radio 810 WHB. Thanks for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold as it's our final edition before the Chiefs and Eagles wage war in Super Bowl 59. Can Jalen Hurts outplay Patrick Mahomes? Many think he did that last time. Can he do it again? What's the plan for stopping Saquon Barkley? Chris Jones, will he make a major impact? Do the Chiefs have the answer for the Eagles' defensive line? Can the Chiefs wideouts win against these young, talented Eagles corners? Which defensive coordinator has the toughest job? Who's under the radar player is going to make the big play in the game? The Chiefs had a number of them. Damian Williams, Kadarius Toney, McCole Hardman. That step out. Is there a Chief ready to do that in this game? What does an Eagle win look like? A Chief win. Keys to the game predictions. We're doing it all right now here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.
You are listening to the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast, the most in-depth analysis of the Kansas City Chiefs on planet Earth, breaking down the Chiefs like no one else can. Red, Gold, and Bold is hosted by Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro. Jeff Chadiha is a senior columnist and on-air personality for the NFL Network and NFL.com. Sam McDowell is the sports columnist for the Kansas City Star. Soren Petro is the afternoon drive host of the program on Sports Radio 810 WHB in Kansas City. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is proudly brought to you by David Starnes Allstate Insurance, covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff as well. Motorcycle, boat, ATV, you name it. Get with Dave and he'll have you covered. You can give Dave and his crew a call, visit them online, or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave. He'll give you peace of mind today for the things in your life most important to you. Now, here are the hosts of the Best Chiefs podcast, Jeff Chadiha, Sam McDowell, and Soren Petro.
Thank you very much, Curtis. We do appreciate it. The Red, Gold, and Bold podcast is with you here on the Friday before the Super Bowl. Remember, if you catch us via the podcast, we stream live Tuesday nights at 9:30, Friday mornings at 10 a.m. We'll see if that changes in the off season, but that's the tentative plan as we speak right now. Jeff, let's dive right into this. Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes. So often the quarterback is what determines who wins this game. Jalen Hurts, many people thought outplayed Patrick Mahomes in the last game. Patrick Mahomes won the MVP. I think Jalen Hurts might even have won it in a losing effort had he not fumbled the ball, and it created a scoop and score for Nick Bolton, which was clearly a major play in the game. What do you think? Does Jalen Hurts have the ability to outplay Patrick Mahomes in this game? Does he need to?
He doesn't need to, and I don't think he will. I feel like this is a game where Mahomes has to be at his best, given what they're going against on the Eagles' defense. And I don't think the Eagles are going to ask a lot of Jalen Hurts because they haven't been doing that all season long. I mean, he's gotten better as the playoffs have gone on, and he threw for almost 250 yards against the Commanders in the NFC Championship game. But before that, the previous two playoff games, he had 250 yards combined passing. And so I anticipate the Eagles being more dependent on Saquon Barkley, more dependent on that defense, and really asking Jalen Hurts to do what he's been doing all season, which is manage the game, don't make the big mistake, and make a play here or there when you can. So I think it's more about Mahomes.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk about whether or not he has to, right? Or is that even a bad thing, Sam? If he's outplaying Patrick Mahomes, does that mean things are going critically wrong for the Eagles in this one?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'll address my voice. I'm playing injured today, so I apologize to everyone that I'm going to be talking less, which I'm sure is a real downer. Yeah, I mean, I can't figure out a way where the Chiefs win the game if he gets outplayed on a per play basis by Jalen Hurts, and I don't think he outplayed Patrick Mahomes. That Hurts outplayed Mahomes 2 years ago on a per play basis. The Chiefs had so few offensive plays in that game 2 years ago, which was part of the Eagles' game plan. And I think we'll get into that. I anticipate that's going to be part of the Eagles' game plan again. But the Chiefs offense is Patrick Mahomes. The Eagles offense, I don't think Jalen Hurts is their primary guy. I mean, they're running backs. They have good wide receivers. They rely on a lot more than Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mean, we know the running back is the spot. And I'll point out that Jalen Hurts, much of his damage was done with his legs, Jeff.
Yeah.
Is that what you think it is again this time? Or do you think there are much more opportunities in the passing game that if he is going to have the big day, it's going to be more as a thrower than a runner?
Oh, I think he's going to be more as a thrower. I mean, he will use his legs, and I'm sure they're going to have design runs to take advantage of the Chiefs probably aggressively overplaying for Saquon Barkley. But there will be matchups out there to be had. I mean, the Chiefs are going to have to pick their poison, whether it's really focused on stopping Saquon Barkley or taking away A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. And a lot of that obviously is situational, but they've got weapons that they can use. And A.J. Brown's had runs in this season, in his career, where he's had like 7 straight 100-yard games. I mean, he's a big play weapon. Devontae Smith is a 1,000-yard receiver in this league. Dallas Goedert is a really good tight end. So I don't think it's just going to be super conservative. But to Sam's point, I think a big part of their game plan is going to be to try to control the football for about 35-plus minutes.
Yeah, I do agree. And what is the plan for stopping the run, right? Saquon Barkley is going to be their number one option. He's averaged against good run defenses, like Curtis Siebold, who works with me on the A10, dug this up and basically separated out to good defenses, which was, X number, and bad defenses. And against the good defenses, he averaged 92 yards a game. Now, let's be clear, that's still close to a 1,500-yard season, right? That's not bad. But I think we would say that if you could put 92 yards a game in there, the Chiefs would take that right now, right? Like, that's not the big day. What is the plan? What approach do you take, Sam, at stopping Saquon Barkley?
Well, I think you look at it and you say you just throw numbers in the box against them. One of the most odd stats about the Eagles is that Saquon Barkley has only faced the 20th most stacked boxes in the league. And so you look at why. Well, he averaged 4.5 yards a carry against stacked boxes this year, in which case you're opening up the wide receivers and you're still not really stopping Saquon Barkley. In the playoffs, teams have tried to stack the box against him. He's gone from 20% to 30% of his carries are against stacked boxes, and he's averaged 6.7 yards per carry when teams stack the box against him. So I think a lot of people say, hey, just put everyone in the box and try and stop Saquon Barkley. Then he beats you on the outside. So, I mean, the answer to this is, first of all, I don't think you're going to stop him. It's going to be to try to limit him, and it's going to be, you got to tackle well. You've got to play really sound assignment football, but you have to tackle well. And the Chiefs have done that this year. They're like third, I think, in missed tackle rate this year. So, like, that's got to be a major part of the game plan. But I can't emphasize it enough that this is a different beast than anyone they faced this year.
Yeah, Jeff, I think a lot of times the Chiefs, at least in years past, have said, look, the big plays come in the passing game are not going to get beat there. If you want to try to nickel and dime us all the way down the field, we'll see if you're patient enough to keep handing it off. And if you can make a, 2nd and 10, right, or a 2nd and 11 or a 2nd and 9, if we stuff you a couple of times and you're 3rd and 8, can you convert that and keep the drive going? Like, we'll win on the down that we think you have to throw the football and we'll get you off the field. That's been their approach at times. I don't know that you can do that this time, right? Like, I think Nick Sirianni has seen enough, and I think the Eagles have seen enough that they may be disciplined enough to just keep running it if you're not stopping it. And they are good enough to grab a 3rd and 7 along the way if need be, and then get back to the run.
Yeah, no, I think that's completely who they are. And it's kind of weird because when you look at this team and this running back in this season, like, it's really hard to go out and find evidence. And Sam's a big stat guy, evidence to really explain how you deal with this kind of player, because it's been over a decade since we've seen a running back show up in this game. You have to go back to like Marshawn Lynch to find a team that used their running back as much as the Eagles will use this guy in this game to try to win a championship. And so I was doing some Philadelphia radio yesterday, and they were asking me about it, and I said, it in a weird way, it kind of reminds me of Terrell Davis with the Broncos when they played the Packers, and we could see that kind of level of commitment to the run in this kind of game, which we have not seen again in a really long time in this league. So, but I think Sam's right. I think it is about limiting. He's going to get some plays. He's going to make some big runs. He's going to You're not going to keep him to like 17 carries for 55 yards. Like that's not going to happen just the way they're built offensively. But if you can mitigate it, if you can try to win in certain situations and find a way to force a turnover here or there, like I think that helps your cause if you're the Chiefs.
I think the Chiefs do leave the linebackers on the field more often. I mean, I know Dallas Goedert is a name partially because he was running the tush push for a little bit. That got his name said a lot. But you look at his production, he is a fine tight end. I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but Dallas Goedert is not one of the greats that are out there. And they have other wide receivers that, yes, can catch the ball. But it's really two guys that you got to mess with when it comes to stopping their passing attack. And I think you leave the base personnel on the field. I think we see them do that, and see all three linebackers out there. But I also think there will be times that they go ahead and do what they do and just say, look, if you're going to – I think they're going to pick their spot to try. I think what you said, Jeff, is, at times, right? Like at times stack the box, at times run blitz. Sam, you talked about the blitzing part of the equation last time. You think that's what it'll be. It'll be run blitzes and maybe with safety personnel, right? Like still in the nickel or dime if something comes up. And you think that they are going to – it's not just going to be read and react, 8 in the box. You think it'll be more of trying to get into the backfield and get him stopped before he gets going.
Yeah, but, I mean, you bring up a good point. I mean, Leo Chenal is – like the Chiefs' answer to this, right? I mean, he's their best run-stopping linebacker outside of Nick Bolton. And so the problem is when you put him on the field, he's not great in coverage. Yeah. But Dallas Goedert is a really good tight end, but he's not fast. I mean, you guys remember that clip against the Saints where he's running away, and I think it was Jordan Mailata is like, God, Dallas, you're so slow. Like, how did you not score? Like, he's not fast. So I could see them being more comfortable with that matchup than they are in other matchups, because Leo Chenal, the reason he can't cover well is he's not that fast. So I could see them leaving him on the field more often and just taking their chances with the coverage of it.
Yeah, and I think that will be, pick your poison part of it. I do think Steve Spagnuolo is going to throw different looks at him, right? Like it's not just going to be here's 8 in the box and we'll try to cover, right? He is the guy who likes to change things up. Jeff, there will be different looks from him. It's not just going to be one game plan, right?
Yeah, no question. And really, I mean, this defense, like most defenses in the NFL, are built to deal with the pass. He wants to get to blitz situations. He wants to disguise coverage and mix coverages up. So that's not going to change. The question, and Sam brought this up the last time we talked, is can they seduce the Eagles into doing what the Ravens did last year in the AFC Championship game, which is try to throw more than you probably want to because you're giving them looks that suggest we're going to take away the run. Like, and I imagine, the Eagles are probably going to be more disciplined because they've lost in this game for one, and they probably can look at that film with the Ravens and say, if we do this, it's going to be chaos for the quarterback we have. We can't. What the Eagles can't do, they can't risk turning the ball over in this game. I think the Chiefs can afford a turnover and still win it. I don't think the Eagles can afford to give away possessions in this game. And so I think the question with putting Chenal on the field, and we haven't seen a whole lot of this, but he can do it, is Saquon Barkley is a real weapon in the passing game. Is a real weapon as a receiver. And just as we've seen Mahomes start using his legs in the postseason, it would not surprise me if the Eagles have been waiting for this moment to start using him more as a receiver.
Yeah, I'm with you. He has had some great receiving years with the New York Giants. They just didn't do it this year. They felt he was more of a impact than running the football, but he can catch the ball. I mean, he was more Christian McCaffrey early in his career than he was, this version that was more Derrick Henry this year, where they really didn't throw it to him. So he is a much better receiver than what the numbers might tell you. I agree. I think that's the part that I think is coming. Like if you want to see what's you're sitting on the fastball, what's going to be the changeup? I do think it's Saquon Barkley in the passing game. And maybe it's like you show the handoff and he comes through the line and it's a screen. He's sitting there waiting after you let the rush come through. I think they'll screen the Chiefs a little bit because they're going to expect him to be aggressive. But I do think you're going to see more of him in the passing game. I think that's going to be a big part of the equation. Always a big part of the equation when it comes to protecting your home, your auto, is your insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance has got you covered. David Starnes Allstate Insurance, serving the Kansas City area and all throughout the Midwest. With David Starnes Allstate, it's not just about fender benders. Beyond traditional safeguards, enjoy perks like roadside assistance for unexpected breakdowns, transportation expense coverage when your car is in the shop, auto replacement protection to keep you on the road in style, and much more. You can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, including North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. Free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews. Every project comes with a written warning. Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. We'll switch sides of the ball, Jeff. Let's talk about Chris Jones making an impact. He had a big impact last year. Does he have to play big? Is there a scenario that the Chiefs win without Chris Jones having a big day?
I don't think so. I mean, I've said for years that this team has won championships because their best players play their best in the biggest of games. And that's, at this point, it's Mahomes, it's Kelsey, and it's Chris Jones. And so we know he's seen a ton of double teams this year. We know that they've used him at a very high usage rate. Who knows if this calf strain has lingered? I think he's been getting work on it in games at different times. But, yeah, he's going to have to play well, and he's going to have to deal with a lot of double teams in this game at a high usage rate. He's going to have to make some plays, or at least open up plays for other guys to do that. I mean, we know that as a run defender, he's not the best in the world at that. He's a guy who wants to disrupt the game through the pass, but he's going to have to really be disciplined. He's going to have to make those plays, because you go back to that 49ers game last year, and he stopped 3 touchdowns. Just with his penetration, just with his desire to get it done. I don't. Again, it's like Mahomes is great, Kelsey's great, but I don't see them winning unless he's also great in this game.
Sam, you've talked a lot about Hurts will hold the ball, the pressure rate. There are going to be opportunities for Chris Jones, in the passing game to put pressure on Jalen Hurts, and we know he can make an impact there. But I think Jeff brings up a good point. I mean, like, if they're drawing underneath him and there's just wide open gaps, Saquon Barkley's in the open field, and we talk about how great the Chiefs are tackling. It's usually because they're getting multiple helmets around the ball, and it's also because they get a chance to square a guy up. But if Chris Jones is leaving huge gaps, that could be a bigger problem than what he might add in the pass rush, right?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned how long Jalen Hurts holds on to the ball, which is longer than any quarterback in the NFL. And I look at it and say George Karlaftis has to have a big day, because that's how he gets his sacks. He's a nonstop. Sorry,
that's all right. We don't even really hear it. You hear it more than we do. Trust me. I have that that problem all the time here.
He's a nonstop. Karlaftis is a nonstop motor guy, and so I look at him and say he has to win. But to me, the Eagles, I think their offensive line is so good that what we've seen in past games against the Chiefs too is teams, I think, get arrogant about their strength of their team and say they don't need, to have an extra guy towards Chris Jones. Like, the Eagles can't get arrogant in this game. They have to double team Chris Jones every time, because Jeff's right. I mean, there's probably a list of like 3 or 4 players you could pick out from the Super Bowl. Like, it's a small list where you could say, if this guy did not play and they inserted someone else in the game plan, the Chiefs don't win last year. Chris Jones, if he's not first on that list, he's second. Like, there's an argument that Chris Jones was their most valuable player in that game a year ago, because Jeff's right. He stopped 3 touchdowns in the game, and like, nobody else contributed 3 touchdowns in the game. I mean, they don't win last year without Chris Jones. So,
and asphalt and concrete. Sorry.
Touchy. Killing you, Sam.
Savory.
Your voice is bent up, and then I'm trying to make you shout over things. No, it's I have a touchpad and not a mouse, and so when you're moving things around, sometimes you hit it too hard. My bad. I'm sorry, Sam.
I'm good, but I am going to address a couple comments about my voice. It's not a result of going out. It's a result of getting
Okay.
zero sleep from work. So
What was that? I saw that. That was from Tommy. This is what you're talking
there were,
about?
Of course.
there were a few. Yeah. It's not. I haven't had a sip of alcohol on this trip in New Orleans, which
Is
is
that right? Not even a sip?
not even a sip in 5 days.
Yeah. Okay.
It's been a week.
Yeah. Well, listen, he's playing hurt, and you people are going to bitch at him. What's your problem?
No
You know?
kidding. Here I am.
Relentless.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
Can you guys imagine? Can you imagine just listening to Soren and Jeff like without me? I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
It's not a world any of us want to live in, right? Like, so no, I agree. No, but look, I do think Chris Jones has got to make an impact in this game, and I think what's going to be interesting to see is how much they rotate him and how fresh is he, because playing the run, it's not his number one choice, and it's actually not. I mean, let me just ask you this, Jeff: am I the only one that thinks he plays awfully straight up? I mean, he is just incredibly strong because he kind of comes straight up out of his
He
stance.
does.
Like, I for a guy who's great, like you watch Aaron Donald, he was the textbook at what coaches would yell at you about for firing out, and he's standing straight up pretty quick in that rush. I mean, it's a lot of just pure ass man strength and throw a guy around. Which look, it works for him. It works. He's an amazing athlete. He works at his craft. He's in great physical shape. He's maximizing everything he's got physically. But like when you do that and you're catching a block, and these guys are guys that really drive you off the ball. That'll wear you down. And so I think how many snaps he's in there, I think people might be a little bit surprised at how many snaps he plays. The snap count might come down, but the production might go up. But I would think if you're catching, those guards, especially we'll see which side they put them on. Mekhi Becton just leaning on you, right? I was on in Seattle yesterday, and I was on right after somebody who covers the Eagles was on. And I was hearing part of what they were saying about it. And they were just gushing about Mekhi Becton, who was a colossal flop with the Jets. I want to point out. Now, he's not playing left tackle or right tackle. He's playing guard. But that is the one thing he is, massive and big. Yep. And so I do think Chris Jones has to be effective, but I think Steve Spagnuolo has to be, and Cullen have to be smart about how they use him and make sure that they're getting the best Chris Jones out there. And not a guy who's worn out and tired and just out there to say Chris Jones was out there hoping something happens.
Yeah. Well, and this is also the kind of game where we've talked about before, where he just can't be bouncing around and on the edge when he wants to be on the edge. They got to have some really disciplined defensive mindsets about how they approach this offense, because with their RPO game and with Hurts' ability to get outside and design runs, and it's what Saquon can do, and the pass game, it's not going to be as much fun for him. This is really more of a grinded out game. And you mentioned him getting high. He tends to get high when he gets disinterested. Like when he knows he's not going to be a part of making the play, or it's a run game situation and he's been on the field for a long time. That's when you start seeing him getting higher. So I don't think it's a bad idea to probably play him less and try to get more quality snaps out of him.
All right. Do the Chiefs have the answer, Sam, for the Eagles defensive line? Like, what is their approach? We know we've talked about left tackle all year. Joe Thuney will be over there at left tackle. But the Eagles, Jalen Carter is one of the more talented defensive tackles. They've got to face kind of their version of Chris Jones. And this is one of the best. He's athletic, not just big. And then they do throw in a massive guy in Jordan Davis, who, by the way, tests as a great athlete as well. He tests better than his production, but he's still a very good player, top 20 interior defensive lineman, according to the PFF grades. What's the approach the Chiefs offensive line takes to this Eagles D-line?
Well, I think the Chiefs have faced much tougher defensive lines throughout this season. I mean, we talked all year about the defensive lines. Like they ran through the gamut this year the Texans twice in a month. The Steelers have a great defensive line. The Broncos have the highest pressure rate in the league. Like they played all these teams consecutively in the back end of the season. So I don't think that the Chiefs have to adjust a lot. That's not taken away from. I think the Eagles have a top half of the league defensive line. I just don't think it's as good as what the Chiefs have faced in the back half of the season. So I don't think that they need to, reinvent the wheel just because they're playing this Eagles group.
Okay. Well, how do you see it, Jeff? I think you'll probably give the Eagles defensive line a little bit higher grades.
I think individually they've got some matchups that I think work more in their favor. The teams that have given the Chiefs a lot of problems on their defensive line have had pretty talented edge rushers. And so now you're getting a team, I guess Zach Allen from Denver be the one guy you'd put in that category as Jalen Carter. But now you're getting a guy who can match up against one of your weaknesses. I mean, we're not going to sugarcoat this. Mike Caliendo is a huge flaw in the Chiefs offensive line right now. And they've been able to mitigate that through play calling and through scheming. But Jalen Carter tends to line up on the left side, but I think you're going to see him switch over to the right. I saw my guy, Brian Baldinger, my coworker, doing some cut-ups on the last time they played the Eagles last year, and you just saw Jalen Carter just like throwing guys like Trey Smith around and just running right through Joe Thuney. Like, that's going to be a problem. And so when you're talking about having to commit a couple guys to deal with him, now you're opening up one-on-ones for other people. And I think Nolan Smith, we'll get into him later, is going to be a factor in this game because of his speed on the edge. And so, yeah, it's not like, I agree with Sam, they're not in the same category as some other defensive line the Chiefs have faced, but they do play a style of defense that tends to give the Chiefs problems at times. A four-man rush and a lot of guys dropping into coverage. Like, that's, if you're going to try to beat the Chiefs, you have to have that recipe, and they have guys who can do that.
When you look at last year's game, and you look at the last two games played between these two, between last year's 21-17 win for the Eagles in the regular season, everyone remembers that game as the game MVS dropped the ball, right? Because that would have put the Chiefs up. That's really the one burning memory that everybody has. But even the Super Bowl 2 years ago, the team that controlled the clock didn't win, right? Sam just talked about how few snaps and possessions the Chiefs had in that game. Well, last year, the Chiefs ran for 168 yards. They were effective running the football on this Eagles defense, and yet they still only managed to get to 17 points. So this has been, and now that wasn't a Vic Fangio defense, right? It was a different approach.
But like three guys defense.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it was at a time that the Eagles were, they finished that game, they were 9-1. So like they were playing, that was the good Eagles of last year, not the bad Eagles on the back end that started falling apart. And they were able to run the football. How much is running the ball what solves any issues the defensive line might throw at them, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's playing into the Eagles' hands. I mean, if the Eagles can force the Chiefs to become a run-first team, because their running game isn't nearly successful since they switched, Joe Thuney out to left tackle, because so much of their runs, and it fits Kareem Hunt's style, is just between the tackles. And the between the tackle stuff isn't nearly as good because your left guard's not nearly as good. I agree with Jeff, but I'd also point out that Trey Smith hasn't played as well over the past month as he did early on this season either. Like those three guys in the middle aren't what they were early in the season.
We know his heart is with the Bears.
That's right.
Now that he's a Chicago Bear.
Counting his money already.
That's my favorite question.
Just the worst guy to ask that to, too. I mean, Trey Smith just could not be a more team guy.
No, I agree. All right, let's flip it around. Can the Chiefs wide receivers win against these Eagles corners? Jeff, you're the defensive back. What do you think? How does what the Chiefs are going to throw out there on the field match up with these Eagles DBs?
Well, I think the Eagles corners are better than the Eagles are better than the Chiefs receivers, but this comes down to Andy Reid's scheming ability. And can he create situations for those guys to thrive? Because he was able to do that, obviously, throughout the postseason, at the in the regular season. Xavier Worthy has done a good job of growing, but they've also done a great job of understanding how to get the ball to him and create these matchups that work in his favor through formations, through personnel groupings, moving him around. And so that's going to be the key. Like if it's just straight up one-on-one, no, I don't. I think Darius Slay can handle Hopkins. I feel like Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, those guys were two of the four guys involved in the Defensive Rookie of the Year voting. I think that they match up well with Worthy and Hollywood. And so, yeah, I think you're going to see Andy Reid have to go deep into his bag to come up with some stuff that's going to allow them to really prosper, because that is the strength of this defense, and that's what they do well. I mean, they'll make some plays, but I don't see them. I think the Eagles cornerbacks will probably win more in this game than the receivers will win for the Chiefs.
I mean, I hate to say see the last topic, Sam, but I think to Jeff's point, I think Andy Reid will scheme them, will have things that can scheme his guys open. The question is, will they have the time, right? And I think that is probably the bigger question. If they have the time, I think he'll have moments where he gets guys open. The question is, how many things does he have? Does it have to all be dink and dunk? What do you think of the matchup, receivers versus DBs, Chiefs receivers versus DBs?
Well, the question to me is, does he need the time? Because the Chiefs, the way they revitalized their offense was just getting rid of the ball quickly. I mean, over the last 4 weeks, I went through game by game, and they've averaged 2.5 seconds, 2.5 seconds time to throw over the last 4 weeks. Over the first 15, it was 2.9. Like that I know that sounds like a small difference. That's a significant difference. They decided that they don't want to worry about the cornerback wide receiver matchup because Jeff's right. Like their wide receivers sometimes are outmatched by cornerbacks. So how do you do that? You throw the ball really quickly, and you just got to beat the press coverage. And I think that's a key to the game for the Eagles is be really good on your press coverage to try and get the Chiefs out of getting rid of the ball so quickly. I mean, the Chiefs, I know the Eagles have a different defensive coordinator than they had in this game 2 years ago, and they've got different cornerbacks. But they actually ran this game plan against the Eagles 2 years ago, too. And Nick Sirianni is the same head coach. I'm sure he remembers. Patrick Mahomes was 13 for 13 on quick passes in the Super Bowl 2 years ago against the Eagles. 2 of his touchdowns, both the corn dog plays came on that. This is how they beat the Eagles. And I anticipate that's going to be a very similar game plan to prevent the cornerback wide receiver matchup from deciding the game.
Yeah, that's a great point. They do like to get it out early. I think at some point, though, they take a shot. And I think it's fairly early on. And I think it's got a chance to be effective because I think you look at what they become, that's what they become is the short stuff. And I wonder if all the short stuff is setting up. This is what it's been. Andy Reid holds his water better than anybody when it comes to setting something up. And I expect him to take a big shot at some point.
Yeah. So last year you're right. It was just the inverse order of it. And Patrick Mahomes, Jesse Newell asked him in training camp, what was your favorite play from the Super Bowl last year? And he said it was the deep shot to McCole Hardman because they needed to prove to the 49ers early in that game that they were going to do that. And so I agree with you. I think at some point in the first drive or two that they're going to try and take a deep shot because that, like I said, it's the same concept you're talking about, Stren, just the inverse order. I think that they want to open up their short passing game by proving that they're at least willing to throw the ball deep.
By the way, I'll throw a little love to one of our great sponsors, Whataburger, Whataburger.com. If you want to get your order in for a game day spread, they brought by some of their wonderful boxes. You can get them with the burgers, double burgers, cheeseburgers, everything you want, all the spreads. That's what we did a couple of weeks ago at my house for the Super Bowl. Their Whata wings are fantastic. But I was tipped off by Matt over at Whataburger. He said, you got to try the chicken fajita tacos. And they were outstanding. And, of course, they're one of our great sponsors here at the Red, Gold, and Bold. Whataburger is proud to sponsor the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast. Now at all your KC Whataburger locations, and for a limited time only, get your Whata wings tossed in any of your favorite flavors, including the new Nashville Hot. Or get your hands on fire you can handle with the all-new, perfectly spicy Bacon Blaze Jalapeno Double. Get a kick this football season with these great new limited-time Whataburger favorites. Stop by any of the Kansas City Whataburger locations today. Whataburger's open 24 hours a day. Unlock a premium dispensary experience at Key Cannabis. Visit one of their 14 key locations across Missouri for a huge selection of cannabis products and expert recommendations from Missouri's friendliest budtenders. At Key Cannabis, you'll find award-winning cannabis, convenient online ordering with drive-through pickup and a loyalty program, plus so much more. Visit their Kansas City area locations in KC North, South Kansas City, and Belton. Open 7 days a week. And mention my name, Soren Petro, to your budtender for 20% off your purchase. Key Cannabis, open for premium cannabis experiences. All right, let's talk a little bit about which defensive coordinator has the tougher job, Jeff. Vic Fangio going up against Patrick Mahomes, Steve Spagnuolo against Saquon Barkley, and Jalen Hurts. Who's got the tougher job here?
It's Fangio. I mean, I think it's an easy answer. You're dealing with a quarterback and a head coach who've won 3 championships, and have an innate ability to make plays in the clutch, and no matter what you're scheming up, they seem to be able to find answers for him. Spagnuolo's got, it's a challenge in and of itself because of the greatness, the talent that the Eagles possess. But I think there's an extra element that comes with dealing with Andy Reid and Mahomes together, and that's a big reason why I think that it's not taking anything away from their championships, but they've been able to really outsmart some younger, lesser experienced coaches in these moments. Like Nick Sirianni and Jonathan Gannon and Shanahan and that crew over there. Like Fangio is somebody who has been around the Chiefs, but he knows. So he knows firsthand. Like he's had moments. I think this defense, it's not just Fangio, it's the defense that they run. It's probably the only defense I've seen consistently been able to give these guys problems. But again, it's still, you're talking about in this game, that's not enough. You still have to be able to have your players perform, and you got to really have everything go right for you.
Yeah. Who do you think's got the tougher job, Sam?
Yeah, I agree with Jeff. It's Fangio, and I agree with everything he said, but I'm going to add on to it. I think the other reason he's got the bigger challenge in this game is because the Chiefs' offense in its current version hasn't been on tape for all that long. The Chiefs have a lot more to gauge and study than I think Fangio does. I mean, if you're someone who all year was saying, and look, I wasn't one of these people, but if you're someone all year who was saying Andy Reid's saving some of his good stuff from the playoffs, your primary exhibit is going to be the AFC Championship game, because they were doing stuff that the Bills said they had never seen before. And I think Vic Fangio has to be watching that game, thinking the same thing, and then also subsequently thinking, what else haven't I seen before that they at least have in their repertoire? And that's really hard to prepare for. I mean, offenses, we talk about them preparing for unscouted looks. It's really tough for defense to prepare for unscouted looks. And I think he doesn't know what he doesn't know in this game. And that makes it a pretty particularly significant challenge for him.
Yeah, I think it's a big challenge. I think always preparing for Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. I agree with you. I think that is the answer, but I don't want to minimize what Steve Spagnuolo's got to go up against. I mean, we do talk about how good Saquon Barkley is, how good the offensive line is, even if I think it's a little bit overrated. Again, not crappy, just a little bit overrated. But I think he's got his hands cut out, got his work cut out for him, got his hands full in this one. But I do agree. I think just what it is that Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes can throw at you is something that, right now, Vic Fangio, who is what, 0-8 against this combination, I think, as a head coach and defensive coordinator, is probably can drive himself crazy trying to figure out what he doesn't know. Because like you said, he hadn't seen it on tape yet. Who's the under-the-radar player for the Chiefs, Jeff? We've seen the McCole Hardmans and the Kadarius Tonys and the Damian Williams. Who's somebody that comes, from we're not really talking about that ends up making a big impact?
Well, Sam mentioned him before. I think it's Leo Chenal, because he was the guy in last year's game who had the big impact because he forced a fumble and he blocked a kick. But he's going to have to really – he's going to be in situations where his run defense, his ability to set an edge and do all that stuff is going to be essential to what they want to do as far as stopping the run game. But he's also going to have to be able to hold up in pass coverage. And if he's out there, and they're probably going to try to attack him, either through Saquon Barkley or Dallas Scott or whoever it is. And so if he's able to do the things that he did last year in this game, I think that really, really bodes well for the Chiefs having a chance to win it.
So we're thinking Leo Chenal pick 6. Is that what I'm hearing there, Jeff?
I wouldn't go that far. A couple tackles for losses probably good for him.
Okay. All right, Sam, player under the radar, makes a big impact.
Well, look, I picked my player based on just a key player, I think, in this game, which is Justin Reid. I think Justin Reid has been the highest performing Chief that we don't talk about. I think he's had a really good year, especially in the back half of the year. And I think so much of what the Chiefs do, look, the Chiefs really rarely run single high coverage. And so a lot of what the Eagles do, I think, is going to try and force the Chiefs to run single high, which means bringing Justin Reid down to the box. Like, he's the guy that's going to have a lot of the game plan is going to pivot on what is his assignment on a particular play. He studies film like crazy. We saw it pay off in a play against Shakur last week. And so he's the guy that's going to have to read stuff correctly in this game for him.
Yeah, I kind of like, and somebody else here, Yozo says Noah Gray. I'm kind of on the Noah Gray tip. I mean, I think Travis Kelce's going to get a lot. Xavier Worthy's going to get a lot. I think Noah Gray kind of gets left alone. Plus, he's really good at that stay home and block. Nope, wait a minute. It's a late tight end screen. And I think that could be effective in this game. I like that play to him. I think he sells it really well and does a nice job of it. And I think he's a pretty good runner after the catch. But, he's had a couple of times where they go someplace else. They'll have a package of plays for him. He had a 2-touchdown game earlier this year. I think Noah Gray looks – and would Isaiah Pacheco be off the radar at this point, like based on what we've seen?
Off the grid.
I mean, so if Isaiah Pacheco, I'm not going to get grief, that I picked an obvious guy. Like Sam took a starter in Justin Reed. So if I take Isaiah Pacheco, I think Isaiah Pacheco could have a nice day in this one.
We call that bold and daring predictions, right? That's
right. That's right. That's what I believe bold and daring should be both bold and daring, not likely and safe, right? That's the whole point of it. All right, let's talk a little bit about if the Eagles win this game, Jeff, what's it going to look like?
Well, a lot of Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley running for 120 or more yards. Jalen Hurts, efficient game. And that defense really doing what the Texans defense did to the Chiefs passing game in the divisional round, which is taking away the receivers and limiting it to about a couple hundred yards. I think that's a lot to ask for, but if you're Philadelphia, that's your ideal situation that you're able to. I don't think the Chiefs run game, I don't think it's going to be a factor in this game for what Sam's. I don't think Kareem Hunt's the kind of running back that's going to run against a defense like this and do a lot of damage, but I think it does come down to Mahomes having to make a lot of plays. And if you're able to keep them under 250 yards passing and run the ball effectively, then the Eagles are going to win the game.
All right. What does an Eagle win look like to you, Sam?
Well, I mentioned earlier, I think they've got to be really good with press coverage if that's what they choose to do, to try and disrupt the short passing game. But the formula for the Eagles win is an early lead and protecting an early lead for the whole game, because it keeps them with their strength. It keeps them in the running game. It allows them to play cover two, which Patrick Mahomes has been by far worse against cover two when you look at the different coverages he's faced this year. So that all hinges on them getting out, to me, to an early lead. I'm not saying they can't win if they don't lead early, but that's the best formula for, and I mentioned this on Tuesday's podcast, but Saquon Barkley with a 2-possession lead this year, when teams know they're running the ball, is at 7.2 yards per carry. He's terrific in these situations. That's their best path to a win.
Yeah, I think an Eagles win is +2 in the turnover category. I think that's one of the keys, because I think if that's happening, they're keeping the offense. That's going to keep them time of possession. I know that you can say, oh, well, just get them 3 and out. I just don't think you just play straight defense and just consistently take the Chiefs off the field. So I think they come up with a couple of takeaways in this game, and they play the game from in front, right? And they continue to put pressure on the Chiefs. I see them like up 10, and everybody, the announcing crew questioning why on 4th and 2 at midfield are they going for it, or why was he going for it on 4th and 1 when he could take a field goal and go up 13, or go up 2 scores, make it 10. It's at 7 and he's going for it. I think it's +2, and I think you see Nick Sirianni be very aggressive on the 4th downs and trying to win the game, trying to put it away, never being satisfied with what the lead is. And that does open yourself up to get stuffed. As we saw, the Chiefs did a good job against the Bills. I think they see that as a challenge, and they're going to come out. I think they're going to die if they win. This is, again, not my prediction. This is if the Eagles win, right? This is what we're going over here. I think they will come out. They will be dominating on all the short yardage situations. Any success the Chiefs had against the Bills will not be replicated against this team. So they will dominate 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, and they will be +2 in the takeaway category. And I think that's the recipe for getting there to an Eagles win. I don't see, and I think it's possible, right? But I don't see the Eagles coming away and winning an even game. It's much more likely, I think, than it was last week for the Bills. I think they could do it, but I don't see it happening. Let's take a break. We're always brought to you by our friends at David Starnes Allstate Insurance. David Starnes Allstate Insurance. Elevate your coverage, elevate your confidence, and drive worry-free. Covering all the important things in your world: home, business, life, and even the fun stuff, as well as your motorcycle, boat, ATV, and you name it. Get with Dave, and he'll get you covered. you can give Dave and his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Visit them online or stop into any of their locations, North Kansas City, Liberty, and Branson, Missouri. Don't put those insurance needs off any longer. Get with Dave today. He'll give you peace of mind for the things in your life most important to you. David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, proudly serving the greater Kansas City area. Nationally recognized full-service paving and pavement maintenance contractor. Locally owned and making parking lot problems disappear in Kansas City since 1994. Let Gann educate you about the most cost-effective way to solve your parking lot problems. With free consultations, no commissions, in-house crews, and every project comes with a written warranty, Gann Asphalt keeps your parking lot safer and helps you and your business avoid unnecessary delays and costly expenses. Find Gann online at GannAsphalt.com or call 816-484-3338. Gann Asphalt and Concrete. One contractor, all things parking lot. All right, let's flip it around, Jeff. What does a Chiefs win look like?
Well, starts again with Saquon Barkley. If you're limiting him and if you're keeping him under, I'd say 4.5 yards a carry, you've done a pretty good job for the day. If you are able to harass Jalen Hurts with the blitz, get them into some obvious passing downs, and let Steve Spagnuolo go to work on him, I think that is going to be problematic for the Eagles. And then finding a way to, I think, just to scheme up some stuff in the passing game that allows those receivers to do the kind of damage they did against the Bills. Like, again, I think the Bills losing Christian Benford early in that game was a big factor for them. Unless the Eagles have Quinyon Mitchell go down or something like that, it's going to be a lot harder. But again, you're going to have a Xavier Worthy or a Hollywood Brown or a Justin Watson, whoever it is, Juju, those guys, someone within that group is going to have to make a couple plays in the passing game for this team to win, because I don't think Kelsey is going to be as big a factor in this game as we would imagine.
Sam, what's the Chiefs win look like?
Look, I mean, they got to stop Saquon Barkley. I agree with Jeff. So just to go with something different, winning on third down, I think, is going to be really key for the Chiefs. It's been their formula for offensive success because they don't get big plays. They don't have explosive runs. They don't have explosive passes. So they have to win on third down and set themselves up to win on third down. Like a major component of that Bills game was there just weren't a lot of third and longs in the game. You know, a lot of they went 5 of 9 on third down, and a lot of it was just short stuff. And, you know, on one of them, they end up getting fourth down anyway. So really, when you face third down 9 times and 6 times, you're moving the chains. Like, that conversion rate is going to be really tough for the Eagles to match.
I'll go at it a little different. I think the key for the Chiefs, like on the defensive side of the ball, you know, what a win would look like. We'll get into the keys in a minute, but what a win would look like is they are in, you know, you mentioned winning on third down. They're in long third downs, right? Like, and so we can just throw in the keys here because it kind of meshes with this. Like, I think it's winning on first down, right? So if they're going to run, then you got to be effective on that first one, right? Like, get at his feet. I think Steve Spagnuolo, for lack of a better term, is going to have to guess right. And if he's throwing the run blitz, hopefully they're running, and that makes it now 2nd and 9. Like, what you don't want to see is is all day against the tush push. Like, that's a long day and wears them out. And I think that's part of, that was part of the success of the Eagles in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, was that it happened a lot. And every time they succeeded, and I think it wears you out. It mentally beats you down, and they're not as good at it. And the Chiefs are probably better at stopping it. Everybody's practiced it and those kind of things. But I still think that that's going to be a big thing. That Nick Sirianni, to me, strikes me as the kind of guy that's, he is the epitome of, if we can't get a yard, we don't deserve to win. So, like, when you show that you're good against that, he's going to prove that they're better, right? The chip on the shoulder adage. So I think you're going to have to, stay away from that, because I don't think you really can win that, right? Like, I keep hearing that, well, they miss a lot. Like, are they worse now? Sam, have you looked at the numbers? Is the tush push significantly worse now than it was? I've heard a lot of people say it's not the same thing without Jason Kelce.
It is worse. I think it was like 88% with Kelsey or something over 3 years. I think it's at 82.5 now. So yeah, it has dipped without him.
It has dipped,
but Cam Jurgens is a Pro Bowl center,
right?
Yeah.
And Mekhi Becton is the second part of the wedge, and that's an even bigger guy hammering in. Like, I still think it's really effective. I would like to see, is everything else the same?
82% is a great rate. Like
Yeah, that's agreed.
Anybody would take that. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. And so I think that's going to be a big part of it. All right, what are the keys to this game, Jeff? When you see it?
Well, one is Patrick Mahomes obviously has to play great. I think that's been proven to happen. But again, there's been Super Bowls where he hasn't played great, and this can't be a game where they start slow. I agree with what you guys have said about coming out. The first quarter will say a lot about how this game goes, because the Eagles historically have been a slow starting team. They tend to do most of their damage in the second, third, and fourth quarter. For the Chiefs, it'd probably be imperative to try to get a lead early and try to exploit that and put some pressure on the Eagles. I feel like Vic Fangio can he get into the heads of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? Because that really is, when you're defending them, you have to be able to not just drop stuff. You have to know what they're thinking, how they're going to go about things, and be ready for the curveballs. And so that's a big factor for me. And then I really think the offensive line, it's in the trenches. For me, this game is going to be won in the trenches. Can the Eagles dominate? They've got the better defensive line, the better offensive line. Can they dominate in that area? Because if they can't, they're not going to win.
Okay. Sam, what do you think the keys are in this game?
Well, to build off of what Jeff said on the trenches, I think you can't have Jalen Hurts beat you, because Saquon Barkley is going to get his. I don't see a scenario when the Chiefs hold Saquon Barkley to like 17 carries for 51 yards or something like that. Like, I think he's going to have a productive day. It's just whether or not it's as productive as this 2,000-yard rusher has been. So you can't let Jalen Hurts beat you. And the way to not let Jalen Hurts beat you is to pressure him. He is the worst rated quarterback that started at least 10 games this year. He's the worst in terms of DVOA. He's got the worst DVOA among all quarterbacks when under pressure this year. He's fifth in situations where quarterbacks are not pressured this year. Like, it is a night and day difference in quarterback play when Jalen Hurts faces pressure and when he doesn't. I think a lot of that is you go back early in the season and he was turning the ball over a lot. I think he's become a much more risk adverse quarterback, and he's just determined that taking a sack is okay. And I don't think taking sacks is good for this Eagles defense. So I think if you can get in his face and create sacks and negative plays, that you're going to have it's exactly what Jeff said about winning in the trenches. Like, if you can do that, it's more important against this quarterback than literally any quarterback in the NFL. The splits are just drastic when you're able to get pressure on them. So for me, that's the key to the game for the Chiefs defense.
I agree with what you said about the third downs, winning on third down, but I think you get there by winning on first down. And I think the Chiefs are going to have to win on first down on both sides of the ball, because I think it opens everything up. And so I think that they have to have a day play calling wise on both sides of the ball. And I'm with you. I think they're going to get beat. I think you can't spend all day worrying about a big play and just give them all up and down the field. Yeah. So I think if you can win on first down, then you can get them off the field. I think takeaways are going to be big, but I don't think either team's going to turn it over, to your point. I think both teams are focused on that part of the equation, and I think they'll both be good. If you do get a takeaway, it's going to be giant in this. So I think you're going to have to actually get the other team off the field. And I think fourth downs are going to be giant, because I know Nick Sirianni's going to go for it. I think Andy Reid, based upon one of the questions he answered yesterday, sounds like he's ready for it. Or maybe it was 2 days ago. Sounds like he's ready for it. He said, they go for it, and you got to be ready to match it. He's going to have to match it. And I think it's one of the most underrated. If they would go on and win this championship, one of the things that I will try to commit to my memory to remember forever is going for it on fourth down at his own 38 against the Buffalo Bills in the first half. That is not something that he wants to do. He is not comfortable doing that. I think just because he's old, and when you get old, you get set in your ways, and it's hard to do new things. And I think it's one of the most important things for Chiefs fans to look at is that Andy Reid is not becoming an old fart, right? Like, he is pushing the envelope of his comfort to do what he and other people are telling him. These are the things we have to do. And when he went for it against Buffalo, that showed that he does have a feel for the game. I thought that was a critical possession to not give the ball back. He didn't do it. Now, I would like to see his second and third down call before it be a little bit better. Sam has pointed out a couple of times, when you're going for it on fourth down, if it's 3rd and 6, you can run the ball and set up 4th and 2. And I think he kind of still always has a get the first down, and then, okay, we're going to go ahead and go for it. And on 4th and 6, he wouldn't go for it. But if he'd gotten 4 on the run and had 4th and 2, he would go for it. So I think he's got to not just be effective on the 4th downs. He's got to be effective and be planning on it so that he makes good calls to set up what is a workable 4th down. I think 4th down is going to be one of the big topics in this in the Super Bowl. And they're going to, so I think winning on 1st to set up good late downs and winning on 4th is going to be really big for the Chiefs in this one. I think it's going to be really big. Jeff, who you got in this game? You got a prediction for us here?
Yeah, I've said the same thing to everybody all week. I said, look, my head says the Eagles because they're the more talented team, but my heart says the Chiefs because they've done it before. Like, if this game was played in a vacuum, I'd probably take the Eagles because we wouldn't have the historical evidence to look at it and say, well, what's Mahomes going to do in this moment? How are they going to handle this situation? And we've seen them do it so many times in these moments that if it's a one-score game coming down the stretch, which I imagine it probably will be, the Chiefs are going to end up winning it somehow. Like, I just, it's just hard to bet against that. And so I'm going Chiefs 24-23.
What?
I picked them last year.
Hold on. Let me see. I'm looking for heads to explode here.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the entire gallery to just like, are they heart attacks occurring? Are there 911 calls going out all over Kansas City? Jeff Chadiha picked the Chiefs. This is the first time, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, you have ever picked the Kansas City Chiefs, isn't it?
It must be. It must be.
You had him at 0-17 this year, I think.
That's right. That's right.
And here's
Don't we have somebody keeping track of this stuff too?
By the way, we need
to clip the part where he said my heart is with the Chiefs.
Yeah, that's right. I would like to point out, Brad, immediately, just put the jinx on. Bitch all the time.
Even when he picks it.
That's right. That's right.
It's the end of days. We're doomed.
That's right. Dancing with the devil. Dancing with the devil this weekend.
Yeah, finally some, a little bit more, Chris says, we have finally convinced the man, And then, of course, and I love this one, where's Matt? Because Matt always likes to track. Matt must be working right now. And I know this guy. What? Trust me, there is not a game that goes by, Jeff, that you are not mentioned.
I know.
By this guy right here. This guy fires
amazingly.
What do you think Jeff's going to think about that? Yeah, I'm like, I think he'll be just fine. I think he'll be
just one
fine.
Man with an opinion over here.
That's right. And by the way, I want to point out, Jeff picked the Chiefs last year in the Super Bowl, and they won. So settle down on the jigs. He did pick them against the 49ers. He has picked them many, many times. In fact, most of the time, Jeff is not like, 2-15 this year.
Yeah,
right?
Like a 90% rate.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Sam, what do you got?
Well, Jeff must have been listening to my segment with you on Tuesday's friend, because I had the exact same score, 24-23 Chiefs. I've since changed it slightly.
Okay.
I'm aware of what the number is out there. I've got the Chiefs at 27-23.
Okay, so now Sam is 27-23.
Is that the over?
That does take it to 50. To 50 takes it over. You're on the under. It's 48.5 or 49.5, depending upon where you look, right?
And the number is 1.5 too. So it's a very small but very, very huge change going from 24 to 27.
Yeah. Okay. 27-23 goes Sam, and I will go 26-24 Chiefs. That's where I've been all week. I think Harrison Butker banging through another field goal to win it is how this one ends when it's all said and done. I think the Chiefs do get it done, and Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid make history. Remember, we're always brought to you by our great sponsors here. We hope you support us by supporting our great sponsors like David Starnes, Allstate Insurance. Give his crew a call at 816-781-7331. Gann Asphalt and Concrete, one contractor, all things parking lot. You can find them online at GannAsphalt.com. Our friends at Key Cannabis. Remember, mention my name, Soren Petro, to your bud tender for a 20% off purchase. That's right, 20% off when you mention my name at Key Cannabis. And by our friends at Whataburger, get set up for your big spread with Whataburger. Go to Whataburger.com and put your order in. Their party boxes are absolutely a great way to entertain a lot of people at your place. For Jeff Chadiha from the NFL Network, Sam McDowell from the Kansas City Star, I'm Soren Petro saying thank you very much for joining us here on the Red, Gold, and Bold podcast.